The goal now is to generate these answer buttons here dynamically based on the actual amount of answers that we have for the current question. And by the way, later we will of course also make sure that the question changes once it has been answered. But for the moment, we just want to output these answer buttons dynamically. And this can be done by going to our children list here in this column. And then in there, we can access current question dot answers, which is this list of strings. And now we must convert these strings to widgets, so to say, to widgets that then use these strings. And such a conversion can be done by using Dart's built-in map method. Now, for that, it's important to understand that answers is a list. It's a list of strings. And lists, no matter which kind of values they contain, but lists in general in Dart have a broad variety of built-in methods, built-in functions that can be called on them. And these functions simply interact with the list in different ways. For example, add would allow you to add a new item to that list, something we'll also use later in the course. Map allows you to convert, to transform, you could say, the values in a list to other values. For that, map takes a function as a value, so that's another example for a place where a function is used as a value. And this function which you pass to map will be executed automatically by Dart for every list item. So Dart automatically goes through the entire list and executes this function on every list item. Now Dart will then also automatically pass the list item for which it is currently executing this function here as an argument to this function. So here you get the list item for which this function is currently being executed. And inside of the function body, you then can return the transformed item. So the new value you want to have in the list instead of that old item. And of course, that new value which you return here can and typically will be based on this item on which the function was called and which you receive as an argument here, because that then allows you to basically replace all the items in a list with new items that are based on the old items. And here I want to return my answer button widget, so that I convert this list of answers, this list of strings, to a list of answer buttons. And since widgets are in the end just objects, which are totally normal values in Dart, it's absolutely fine to convert a list of strings to a list of widgets, even though it might sound strange at first. Now it's important to understand that this conversion does not change the original list. So the list of answers that is stored in these quiz question objects does not change when calling map here. Instead, map in the end yields a new list, a brand new list object in memory, but both lists coexist in memory. That's really important to understand. Map does not change the original list. Instead, it returns a new list full of new objects. In this case, full of new answer buttons. And on these answer buttons, we can of course then set answer text to item, because item here will be of type string, since our answers are strings in that list of strings. So item is our string. We could also name it answer instead of item, because that name is up to you. To make it clearer, that will get the individual answers here, since this function is executed for all the answers automatically by Dart. And hence we can set this answer string as a value for the answer text, which wants a string. And for on tap, we can, for the moment, just pass an empty anonymous function. But now you see I'm getting an error here. And in the end, I'm getting an error here that this element, which is of type iterable, whatever that may be, can't be assigned to the list type widget. The problem which we in the end have here is that I now got a list of answer buttons, or something like a list. It's actually an iterable as it turns out, but you can treat this almost like a list here. But Flutter isn't happy with getting a list or an iterable here. And that would also be the case if I manually create a list here, a list of answer buttons, for example. Here I also would be getting an error that this type of data is not wanted here. And it's not wanted here because children, this argument which we set on the column here, wants a list of widget. Now here inside of that list that we are creating another list though, a nested list. So now children is a list of widgets like text and size box, but also a list that contains other lists as values, and that's simply not what children wants. It wants just widgets as values inside this list, not other lists. So converting our answers to answer buttons is not enough if they're still in a list thereafter. Instead, what we have to do here is something called spreading. We have to spread this list or this iterable, which is generated by map, into a couple of individual values. And that's done by adding 3 dots in front of this, which might look strange, but which is another built-in operator, a built-in keyword, you could say, which is available in Dart. And these 3 dots will simply take all the values in a list or an iterable and pull them out of the list, pull them out of the iterable, and instead place them as comma-separated values in this place in code here. So now these answer buttons in this list of answer buttons here are pulled out and added as individual comma-separated answer buttons to this list here, which is set as a value for children. That is what's happening here with this code. And with that, we can and should now get rid of these extra answer buttons here and just use these answer buttons here, which are created based on the answers list, which is a list of strings, which is then converted with help of map from a list of strings to a list of answer buttons, and then these answer buttons are pulled out and added as individual elements to this children list, so that overall here we get a list of widgets. And with that, if you save everything, you see that again here we have all these answers like before, but now they're dynamically generated instead of being hard-coded. And this is a super important pattern because being able to dynamically generate and output list content is crucial, since you will see that most apps deal with some kind of list data in some parts.